Welcome to the Publish Her podcast, a place where you can come to get inspiration, motivation, help, encouragement, and support in your journey to write, publish, and sell your book. Hosted by Alexa Bigwharf.
'Cause I've been where you've been, and I felt what you're feeling, and I don't want to get in your way.
I'm Alexa Bigwharf, host of this podcast, and today my guest is Wendy Fedan, a full-time freelance illustrator designer living in Amherst, Ohio. She graduated from the Cleveland Institute of Art, where she also teaches continuing education courses for teens and adults. That must be pretty rewarding. Wendy launched her own design for publishing biz in 2021, named Createaway Design and Publishing, to act as a book shepherd, helping other authors through the self-publishing process. She has 14 indie published books under her belt so far, mostly picture books, which she's also illustrated, but also has her own novel series called Somewhere in Between to explore her personal interest in the paranormal. So boy, do we have some options on which way to take this discussion, right?
Absolutely.
I think, if it's all right with you, the two things I'd really like to cover today are first, the children's book element, and we have a lot of children's book authors in our audience who may be looking for an illustrator. But I also think it might be worth us spending a little bit of time on what it's like to market two very different genres, because we have a lot of authors who are doing the same as you, either nonfiction and fiction or children's books and paranormal. And the question is always asked around, how do you build audiences that are so for such different genres? So if you're cool with that, we can talk a little bit about that too.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, so
Yeah.
let's start off with just tell us about who you are, how you started writing, your projects, whatever you want to share.
Okay, great. So yeah, I started writing when I was, I don't know, basically when I first started learning how to write, because just when I started learning my ABCs and started learning how to write words. My interest in writing, actually, to be honest, began before that. Because I have this memory. I can't believe I actually have this memory of being in the basement with a book, stealing a book off the shelf from upstairs, bringing it down the basement, and trying to figure it out. And I didn't even know how to read yet. I remember looking at the words on the page and wondering, why are some of them grouped together when not what I now know are called paragraphs.
Mhm.
What are those marks that I see every once in a while? Those dots and little lines, they're called quotations. Um, and so even before,
The
so
basics.
I think I was ready to write before I even knew how to write.
Yeah.
Um, so I love that I have that memory. I'm really glad I have that. Um, so yeah, so when I was a teenager, I attempted to write my first novel, typed it on a regular typewriter, 104 pages, and
Wow.
sent it sent it out to publishers because I was like, "Hey, I'm
Why
gonna
not?
try. Why not?" Because my grandmother told me all about query letters, and she encouraged me a lot. She's the one who taught me how to use a typewriter in the first place, and she
My
was really
grandmother did the
yeah.
same thing. She gave
Oh
me
my
my first
gosh!
typewriter too.
Yay! Oh my gosh!
But I did not get
Yeah.
140 pages. I think I got to about 8
Ah.
on my first. So good for you.
And of course, I got all these really nice rejection letters back. Well, maybe a few that were actually nice. And I do remember one postcard that I did receive that just had my name written in the blank and a check mark. It was one of those generic postcards. I was just, and so I basically kind of gave up for a little while as far as trying to even think about getting my work published. But I
Mhm.
always loved writing, and I knew it would always be a part of me. And so I ended up going the self-publishing route years and years later when I realized that there was this wonderful thing called print on demand.
Mhm.
And since I'm an illustrator, an artist, I'm able to do the whole shebang myself. So I thought, well, why not? if I can do this, why not? So that's how I got into that. Um, and yeah, let's see. As far as getting into, yeah, what was the topic that you really wanted to focus
Oh
on
yeah,
first?
so let's start with the children's books and talk about
Okay.
your so you started writing and illustrating your own children's books, and
Yeah.
the link to your books will be in our show notes for everybody to go check those out. At what point in time did you decide to start offering services for others? You said you created Creative Design and Publishing in 2021. Is that when you first did that, or were you doing illustrations for others already at that point?
I was already doing illustrations for people. I decided to create my LLC, just I think it was just last year actually when I decided to do that, and that was the year when I did the most, I guess, for other people. And before that, I really didn't do a whole lot. Excuse me, of illustration for other people as far as for books, because of course I'm a freelance illustrator and that's my job. That's my career path. But it I'm used to having to mimic different styles for other people in as
Hmm.
a professional illustrator. But I realized when I tried doing that for other people for books, when I tried illustrating other people's books, um, just trying to morph myself into what they wanted, it just wasn't going as well for me.
Hmm.
And it wasn't until a friend of mine in Arizona, she bought one of the books that I self-published, and that was one of my passion projects, and I illustrated it the way I wanted to, since I was the one who was writing it and illustrating it.
Uh-huh.
She bought the book and she said, "I love this and I'd love for you to illustrate my book." So it was different because she already loved what I was doing, and she said, "I want the same spirit, the same
Yeah.
life in my book." And I was like, "Well, this is great. This works out perfectly because when I did the book that she loved, it I was able to whip it out in maybe like a month or two as far as the illustrations go.
That's
Cuz
amazing.
yeah, cuz it was like, well, it was during the pandemic too, so I wasn't really doing a lot of other work at the time, so that was helpful. But still, I would realize I was choosing a style that I was familiar with, I enjoyed, and I also knew it would go quickly because I don't necessarily like to labor
Right.
for a long time on one project. Even though I know that illustrating a book is a long project, it could take like a whole year to illustrate a book if you really wanted to, spend time. And it has taken me that long, if not longer, on some past projects that I did for other people.
Yeah,
And I
I've been checking out your website, and your illustrations are so cute.
thank
I would
you.
almost describe them as whimsical. I don't know
Yes,
if but just
that's a good
very,
word.
yeah, colorful and bright and cute. I see lots of animals. So definitely if you're but what I don't see is how anyone would hire you to work with them. How does someone do that from your website?
Oh, yeah. I guess I don't have that too completely clear. Uh, but on my contact page, I believe I have some information, or about, I think I have on my about page,
Okay.
um, on my cawpublishing.com page. Um, I've got a tab for about about me or something like that. Oh boy,
Okay.
I should
Well,
have that to look at. But anyway,
I
um,
will we'll be sending some folks your way, actually, because we have some authors who have recently requested illustrator information, and it looks like your book could be a potential fit for them. So yay. Super
so
cute illustrations. So, okay. So then you started your company, you started working with other authors and illustrating with them. I noticed you refer to yourself as a book shepherd, so you help people through the process. Are you a publisher as well of these books, or are you mostly in the guidance for self-publishing?
I can do both. basically I've done the whole the whole package for people, where I'll illustrate it and do the book design, and even if they're completely non-tech savvy, as a couple people I've worked with are, they prefer they'll just have me even do the stuff on the internet as far as uploading the book and all that stuff,
Sure.
and inputting all the information, helping them get an ISBN if they need that, helping them get providing a barcode for them, that kind of thing. Um, but there are some people I work with who already have some experience, already have um, their own publishing label that they
Hmm.
have for themselves, and I'll I'll always ask them, would you would you like is it okay if I have my logo along with yours on the back, or you know I always discuss that in advance with people how they prefer to do that, because if they've got their own logo, I'm like, well, as long as I'm credited inside the cover there,
Yeah.
that's enough for me. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, great. So at what point in time then did you start incorporating the YA, and it looks like have you written middle
Mm.
grade books too?
Yeah. Actually, yeah, I've done middle grade with my Wearing My Weird series. That was actually the series that it actually was inspired by the 104 pages I wrote as a 12-year-old. It
Hmm.
turned into a 3-book series called Wearing My Weird, based on my experience from moving from Canada to the United States. So that was my middle grade series. And then now I've got this, I'm calling it YA slash middle grade, or like upper middle grade. It's kind of like it stretches it a little bit because the characters are all in junior high, but it focuses on paranormal material. So it's like it
Okay,
depends on the maturity of the reader, whatever interest they have, whatever
sure.
reading level they have. Everyone's kind of different. So that one kind of goes in between the two, which is which is appropriate because the title is somewhere in between.
Right. That works for you.
That works.
So I'm really curious about really about the marketing element, because obviously marketing children's picture books, I mean, as a children's book publisher with our company Purple Butterfly Press, I can tell you for a fact that marketing to a true like elementary school audience is completely different and requires all kinds of different activities than it would for the middle grade or YA, which often YA is read by adults too. So how did you tackle this? How do you market? Did you market are you under the same name? And if so, do you wish you had done it differently, or just I'll just let you start talking before I throw
Okay,
50
yeah.
questions at you.
Well, what you're saying is helpful for me to figure out an answer. But yeah, as far as what I should say, but yeah, I do. Yeah, I've heard of other people choosing different, yeah, a different name for different types of writing that they do. For me, I've decided to just use my name for all of them,
Mhm.
because even my YA slash MG novel series isn't really, there's not a lot of serious adult stuff going on. It's not something that is not child friendly,
Right, right. So
because
it's
I
not that
actually,
different of an audience.
so
It's not like you've got,
yeah,
ABC book 1, 2, 3 plus uh I don't know, what's one of the right,
erotica.
or even, what are the vampire books? I can't believe I just forgot the
Oh,
you know what, Twilight.
the
Twilight.
Twilight,
Those would
yes.
be a little yeah, of a different series. But yeah, if you're marketing towards the younger crowd with your YA, then I can see how it wouldn't be that far of a stretch in your marketing for the younger
Yeah.
kids and the middle grade, younger teens.
Yeah, it's kind of like a progression. I have a progression kind of thing going on, I guess, with my picture books, and then when my readers get a little bit older, they will, you know,
Mhm.
get into maybe the middle grade, and then when they get a little bit older, they might get into the upper middle grade slash YA,
Mhm.
um, depending on their interests, of course. So, because yeah, I tend to, when I wrote my that older series. I wrote it with the thought in mind I would really love for my son to be interested in reading it. And at the
Mm-hmm.
time, he was 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually did really enjoy reading the first book. So I met my goal with that. I was so
Yay.
happy because he is not a reader. And I was just very thrilled that he enjoyed it. Uh, so yeah.
Well, let's talk about marketing for a minute then, because
Mm.
I think marketing a middle grade aged book is pretty difficult. What types of tactics have you employed to do that?
Yeah, that's something. The marketing part is something that I struggle with personally.
Hmm.
As a self-published author, of course, the marketing, that's always the struggle. And I'm learning a lot about that. Doing podcasts like this is one of the things that I've been trying to do more of,
Hmm.
being interviewed on podcasts and just getting myself out there as much as I can. I did reach out to a um, teen book festival that's happening in Ohio, and I was accepted there, and I'm looking forward to going there. So the different festivals, I'll submit different kinds of books. I recently also went to a what's called an author alley event at a bookstore. They have this alleyway, and they had three different weekends, which it was very that was difficult for me because they had a fiction weekend, they had a children's book weekend.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, I mostly have children's books, so I guess I'll go ahead and submit to the children's book weekend. And luckily they also allowed me to bring my teen books,
Oh,
which I
that
was
is
very happy
nice.
about. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that would be okay, but yeah, that was kind of an event that had both picture books and nonfiction books, so at
Mhm.
least it wasn't too out there for me to have my fiction books too. So
Do you find that festivals and events, now that a lot of people are able to get back
mm,
out again and may have written their first books during the shutdown period and where there weren't a lot of live events, so are now seeking to get out there? A question I hear a lot from people is, especially if there's a fee for the table or sometimes they can be as low as $20, sometimes it's as much as $200. So it can be a big investment. But the question is always asked, is it worth it? Will I sell books? Is it worth the time, energy, and investment to do an event like that?
yeah, I'd say yes. It depends, of course, on how much the fee is to
Hmm.
join in. There are some events that you might pay $80 to $100 or more maybe to participate. I shy away from those because I tend to that basically takes away most of my profits,
Hmm.
and so I mostly just go to events if they're $40 or less, that kind of thing. That's that's acceptable to me.
Hmm.
Although I believe the event that I did that was connected with the bookstore, I don't believe they actually had a fee for theirs.
Oh, nice.
Instead, and actually, I made the most. Oh my gosh, I made the most money out of that event because not only because of that, but also because the bookstore ended up buying copies of
Wow.
people's books after the event to have in their store,
Yeah.
and that was absolutely wonderful. Yeah,
So I guess a
I
pro tip from that is to get on the email list or social media of your local bookstores so you know when they're
mhm.
having events, because I'm sure they must do some kind of did they do a call out for authors to participate in their event, or did someone reach out to you? How did that come about?
No one reached out to me, so I had to investigate it myself.
Mhm.
I think I can't remember how I found out about it initially. I think I might have, um, uh, sorry, signed up for their newsletter, their
Mhm.
e-newsletter, and saw. I just opened it up one day and saw this thing called Author Alley event. And like, what's that? So
Mhm.
I had to do the investigating. I actually, didn't hear anything about it other than that, and thank goodness I kept in touch with them,
Yeah.
and actually am starting to have a good relationship with this bookstore now too, because I also illustrate these bags that you see behind me here.
Yeah.
They're like writer themed, and that's actually part of my main job is I illustrate for this company that does that kind of thing.
Oh, how
But
fun.
I had the idea to do these writer slash book reader themed bags, and they weren't selling very well with the company that the main company that I'm doing this for, but that's because they're selling to a different kind of customers. So
Mhm.
I bought a bunch of them to attempt to show to bookstores, and that's going much better. Um, so it's this really cool.
So
It's
there's a
nice to
couple
have.
key.
Yeah, it's nice as a writer, I think, to have if you've got something in addition to your books
Yes.
to bring to events. I think that's a nice thing to do when you go to events. Even if you've got buttons or something like that that are related to your books, it's nice to have other little things for people to pay more attention to your
Mhm.
table, and they'll see, oh, what's this?
I would agree. And, it's a topic that we discuss a lot through our different workshops and the membership and all those kinds of things because to your point, I mean, you have multiple books out there, but it can take a while before you start seeing the income from your books to generate a living, a salary, enough that you
Yeah,
can live off of, right? Everybody has different goals and how much money they want to make. Some people, they don't care about money, they're just happy that they published their book. Other people want to make back any money that they invested in the production and publishing of their book, and other people want to go for the gold, live off of their income royalties. But to have this additional, we talk about additional streams of revenue, and so you're blessed with the gift of illustration, but the fact that you have designed these bags, and I see they're on your website too, but that's an
yeah,
additional stream of income for you for while your books are getting off. And I would imagine it also brings people to you when they find this, they may click over to your website or do other things. So that's really cool. But I think that the key takeaway from the bookstore event is that, you know, I'm just going to pick on the people that have published their books and just expect booksellers and retailers and readers to be banging down their door trying to get them places and buy their books and all those things. It takes
yeah.
quite a bit of initial personal investment and investigation to find these events. But how smart from the perspective of the bookstore that they kind of set up an event where they could preview some books and also get the opportunity to see what people were actually buying when they
Yeah,
came through. So like, okay, that's a book we want to have in our store. We see people buying this book. And it's challenging to get into local bookstores for new authors and indie authors because of this, of the fact that booksellers have no idea if your book is going to sell or not. And that kind of gave a little bit of social proof. So how cool.
yeah.
I'll have to follow my own advice and get on. We don't, it's sad. And where I live, there's so few actually brick and mortar bookstores,
Oh,
small ones. Of course, we have Barnes and Noble and Books a
uh-huh.
Million and the big chains, but very few small retailers. So those of you who live in a place where you're blessed to have lots of bookstores, get to know them, find out what they're doing, see what activities they have. It's a really great way to literally get your foot in the door.
That's right. That's right.
So what's next on the horizon for you? Do you have more books coming out? Are you
Mm.
what are you doing?
Yeah, I've got this picture book that I have on my plate that I need to finish up. I just need to finish illustrating it. It's all written. So I keep hoping that I'll be able to, I really want to be able to release it this year. There's just been a lot going on with my daughter
Mm.
getting into her senior year of
Oh
high
wow.
school and all that stuff, dealing with all this personal stuff that's kind of, getting in the way a little bit. I also need to work on book 3 of my fiction series. So that has been terribly put on the back burner lately. And so, like, hitting myself over that. But I'm like, okay, if I can get this picture book out this year, it's called, let's see, it's called Oh, for crying out loud. This is how this is
You're
how
like me under
oh
pressure. It's
my
like,
gosh.
what are your
Yeah,
children's
yeah.
names?
Exactly.
Uh.
What is it again? Oh boy.
It'll come to you as soon as
It'll
we
come
end
to
this
me.
interview. You'd
It'll
be like,
come
I
to
know
me.
exactly
It's not out yet anyway, so it doesn't matter.
well, I'm sure we'll be able to find it on your website when it's ready.
Yeah.
Um, so as we wrap this up, do you have some tips that you would love to share with newer or those just getting started with publishing a picture book on
Mm.
things you wish you'd known or success for launching that first book or whatever you would like to share with our audience?
Great. Yes. Well, I would say, don't put all your eggs in one basket, especially when it comes to traditional publishing. You don't have to, even with children's book publishing, you don't have to think that there's only one way to do it.
Hmm.
And if you go with a traditional publisher, they'll probably want their own illustrator anyway.
Yep,
So if you want to
almost
go with
always.
traditional publishing, then you don't have to worry about getting an illustrator. Um, but even if you do want an illustrator, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't afford one. There are lots of different ways to go about it. There are people like me out there. There's people online that you can find Fiverr, or you could go to a your your local art school and get an art student who's really interested in broadening their portfolio, and
Hmm.
have them work on your book. So there are lots of different ways to do it. And big time though, don't let little stuff like how do I get a barcode or an ISBN number get in your way
Right,
of
absolutely.
self-publishing. Don't let those little things get in your way. That's why my business is called Create a Way Publishing. So
I love that.
yeah, yeah.
That's great. Well, I appreciate you taking your time out today. And again, the link to her website is in the show notes. But for anybody who's not looking at the show notes, do you want to go ahead and just speak it out for them so they might be able to jot it down?
Absolutely. You said it's Create a Way Design and Publishing is the name of my business, but the web address is cawpublishing.com.
That's pretty easy to remember. All right. Well, thank you so much, Wendy. This has been a fun and I always love talking to children's book authors because that's where I spend a lot of my time. So I can't wait to pass on this information about telling them to go like scout out all their bookstores and find out if they do little events like this. I know there's always like indie bookstore events, there's National Read a Book Day, there's all of these different type of events. There's the it's like a scavenger hunt type thing that a lot of the bookstores participate in, and I've forgotten the name of that event, but definitely for children's book authors, get out and see how you can connect with not only your local bookstores but local schools as well, and any events that they might be having. um, and of course fairs. As we get to the end of the year, we'll start seeing a lot of holiday fairs and markets and all those types of things. Those are great ways to get your books out in front of new people and sell some books.
Hmm. Yeah, those are
uh,
the
yes.
best.
All right, thanks, Wendy. Have a great day.
You too, Alexa. Thanks.
You don't have to give me your heart. You don't have to give it away. You don't
Thank you for joining us on the Publisher Podcast. We hope to see you back for the next episode. Great, huge thanks goes to Jasmine Commerce for the use of her song. You can find Jasmine on SoundCloud. Go check out all of her music. We'll see you next time.